I believe it is 5:15, and so I will call the meeting to order. Hello, everyone. My name is Monroe LeBuis, and I'm the chair of the San Mateo County Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission. Welcome. We will do a roll call of commissioners and establish quorum. And if anyone else, members of the public, or presenters tonight, our partners at county agencies and so forth, would like to introduce themselves in the chat, please go ahead and do that. Vice Chair Hubert Levy, will you please take roll call?
I'd be delighted. Monroe LeBuis.
Present.
I am also present. Rebecca Flores.
Present.
Armand Kari Aurora.
Present.
Satvik Nori.
Present.
Actually, Commissioner Swope.
Here.
Commissioner Willis.
Here.
You didn't call Joanna.
I got out of order here. Commissioner Rasmussen.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Enriquez.
Here.
Commissioner Bocanegra. Not sure if I saw him here yet. Don't think he's here. I think that's it for now.
Sasha.
Well, she's not officially a commissioner yet.
Sworn in yet.
True.
Just a few more minutes, and then we'll be able to call her commissioner.
Okay, great. So I am off mute, right? Yes. So I believe we have a quorum. Thank you. And why don't we move on in the agenda? Our next step would be to adopt the resolution to continue to meet remotely by Zoom per AB 361.
I move we adopt the resolution to meet remotely per AB 361.
Great. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, let's do a voice vote of commissioners to adopt that resolution. Please, commissioners, come off mute, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any objections or abstentions? Okay, so we will continue to meet remotely by Zoom. The next item on the agenda would be to approve our minutes from March, which were in the agenda packet. And I would note one mistake I made in putting together the minutes, which is that I attached an old report from Director John Fong from Children and Family Services, dated February 1st, when I should have attached the report from March 1st. So that will be corrected when the minutes are finalized and on the website. So with that change, are there any other changes to the minutes?
I move approval of the minutes.
I have one change. Canyon Oaks is spelled as Canyon Oak on one page, Karen. So if you just do a search on that.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. And thank you, Commissioner Rasmussen. Any other, before we go on to a vote, were there any other changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, then let's do another voice vote to approve the minutes from March. Commissioners, come off mute, please, and all in favor say aye.
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 Any objections or abstentions? All right, the minutes are adopted. Thank you. Next item, administrative item is, I believe, to note that we did receive a resignation from Commissioner Steve Duddy, or former Commissioner Steve Duddy, who just let me know that with his other commitments, being CEO of a company, running some other things in his business life, he just wasn't able to devote the time, and so he has resigned from the commission. Sorry to say. The good news is that we have active recruiting going on to add new commissioners, and we'll hear from Commissioner Enriquez later about progress on that. But more immediately, Sasha Newton's application to become a commissioner was approved by the Board of Supervisors, and Judge Cadet is here and ready to swear her in. So
Yes,
it's
I am.
always,
It's
always
my-
fun to add someone new. Please, Judge Cadet, take it away.
Yes, it's always a pleasure. Welcome, Sarah, Sasha Newton. Welcome to you. Okay, so please raise your right hand. Please repeat after me. I, Sasha Newton,
I, Sasha Newton,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you, Judge Cadet, and thank you to the commission.
All right, and I will read Judge Davis's portion. He is the presiding judge of the Superior Court of San Mateo County, and it says here, appointment to the Juvenile Justice Commission, that I, Leland Davis III, presiding judge of the Superior Court, County of San Mateo, do hereby appoint Sasha Newton as a member of the Juvenile Justice Commission in and for the San Mateo County for the term prescribed by law. And he has already signed it. I am signing it in concurrence, and I am signing indicating that you have made your oath, which was subscribed and sworn to me today, this 26th day of April, 2022. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Very exciting to be part of this commission.
We're very happy to have you officially now, Sasha, after your many months of fantastic volunteer work with committees and with the commission. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, great. So moving on to finish off the administrative part of our meeting, the next step is to approve the agenda. I will note one correction in the agenda, which is that I listed Judge Etizadi would be present as part of the updates. And of course, we have the Honorable Judge Cadet with us, and I've neglected to alternate month to month as they do in the agenda. So we'll replace Cadet with Etizadi in the agenda. Commissioner Rasmussen, I see your hand up. Is it about the agenda? Go ahead. What?
Yes, thank you. So
yeah.
I don't know why I haven't caught this before, but I looked back in the records and it looks like there's been some generic language on our agenda for some time. And so I'd like to call your attention just to the right under the agenda where it says public comment will be accommodated, and then it asks participants to send their public comment on agendized items to the chair in advance, but it doesn't list an email address on where they can do that. And then on the very end of our agenda, there's some language that doesn't seem to apply at all. It talks about handing a speaker's card to the county manager. So I'm wondering if we might be able to remove that language or clarify that language. I know there's some rules about, people can choose to be anonymous if they want to. So asking them to submit a public comment by email might not, so those are my two concerns. If we could maybe take out that language.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't we make that adjustment to that boilerplate language for our future agendas? And thank you, Johanna. I'll follow up with you on the specifics of that. It's easy enough to insert the commission email address at the top, but the other language we can talk about, and we'll get that fixed for the next meeting. Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda?
We should actually have a motion before us before we have discussion, and I move approval of the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Swope. Any second? Is there a second?
I second.
I see Paul's thumbs up. Maybe that was a second.
I seconded it, but it's okay.
Welcome, Commissioner Bocanegra. Any other adjustments to the agenda or comments on the agenda from commissioners? Okay, not hearing any, then let's also do a voice vote to approve this agenda and then get on with it. Commissioners, if you could come off mute, and all in favor of this agenda, say aye.
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 Any objections? Anyone opposed? No, and no abstentions. Great. All right, we have our agenda. And at this point, we pause to call for any public comment on items that are not on the agenda. And then during the meeting, we will also pause during agenda items for the public to comment on those as well. So at this point, are there any members of the public that wish to make comment on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, I did not receive any by email ahead of time either, so then we will move on to the next section of our agenda. And again, welcome to everybody who's here. And if you haven't introduced yourself in the chat already, please feel free to do that. We always love to know who's here, if you're willing to introduce yourself, and we're very happy to have you. So the first section of our agenda, sorry, where did I? There it is where we get updates from our county partners on what is going on in the juvenile justice system. The first item that I had there was an update from the court, but I also give each of our partners the opportunity to give their time back if there haven't been any significant changes or developments in their area during the month. And Judge Cadet let me know that that there haven't been any significant changes or updates, so she would be happy to give the time back. And so we will go on to Ron Reyes, the managing attorney of the private defender's office.
Actually, Monroe, I would like to take 30 seconds because after I sent that communication to you indicating that there were no updates, there are no significant updates. We are continuing with the hybrid approach. But this afternoon, I did see Johanna and one other JJDPC member in the courtroom today, and just wanted to, give a shout out and say it was nice to see commissioners there. And then I will give away the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome to jump in anytime, Judge Cadet. Appreciate that. And a question for you: is it still possible for commissioners to sit in on court proceedings by Zoom?
Yes.
Yes, and in order to do that, we should contact the clerk and to get the Zoom link. Is that right?
Exactly, because
Okay.
the Zoom link for each of the courtrooms changes every day, for the morning calendar and for the afternoon calendar, because we have to be really careful and make sure that the proceedings are confidential. So if you're ever interested in watching the morning or the afternoon calendar, just reach out to our clerks. My clerk is Sarah E. and Judge Edazadi's clerk is Ivy, and we're happy to accommodate you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Commissioner Wilson, I see your hand up. You have a question.
I saw in Johanna's email that youth are not going to be youth commissioners, or members of the commission who are youth under the age of 18 are not allowed in the inspections for this upcoming year, which is a change to me at least. Is that something you can talk to, and how can I find out more? Because I'm very concerned by that statement.
It was that way last year as well, right? And it was simply the facilities and not the schools. So we can do school inspections, but not facility inspections.
So Commissioner Wilson, can we talk about this when we get to the inspections update part of the agenda?
Sure.
Yeah?
Happily done.
about
I
that?
just wanted to make sure that was brought up. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, terrific. So coming back to the agenda and updates from our partners, Ron, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Ron Reyes. I'm the managing attorney with the Private Defender Program Juvenile Office. Right now, it's the peak of the legislative season. I actually came back from Sacramento today. I'm co-leading a working group for a bill that would amend Welfare and Institution Code Section 782. And that code section gives discretion to the court to dismiss petitions. And then this particular bill, what it does to that discretion, it creates presumption that any time a youth has completed, the court's jurisdiction is about to terminate, and or anytime thereafter, they can petition the court to get that adjudication dismissed, and the bill will create a presumption and that in favor of dismissal, unless there's a finding by the court that the dismissal would endanger public safety. So that's we went through Public Safety Committee today, it passed, and then on to the next phase right now. So happy to answer any questions about this bill. It's a little technical, but we're very excited. It's essentially the thought behind this bill. It'll expand on the existing ceiling laws to kind of create more options and rehabilitate for the rehabilitation purposes of the juvenile justice.
So this is dismissal pre-adjudication, or?
Well, the pre-adjudication is already on the books, so we're not touching that.
So what is this?
We're creating presumption for at the time of the termination or any time thereafter. So if you have, for example, if you have a youth that already completed probation and they don't have pending cases, they can go back and ask for a dismissal. And then if this law passes, there'll be presumption in favor of dismissal.
Thank you. So great.
All right, terrific. Thank you for that. Thank you for that update on your work. Any other questions from commissioners for Ron Reyes? I see Commissioner Huber Levy with her physical hand up. Yeah.
Hi, Ron. Good evening. Thanks for coming. I just wanted to check in with you. I think you have a pretty positive feeling about this bill. You have a lot of support behind it.
Yeah, we have, I believe, 33 organizations in support of this bill, and so far no opposition. But that doesn't mean something could happen and things could change, but so far we made it without an opposition.
Great. And there's a bill that came up that was on the 2-year track, AB 503, the limit on juvenile probation supervision to 6 months, the endless probation bill. Is that?
I believe that's still pending. That's being by the Youth Law Center. They're the sponsors of that bill.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions for Ron, thank you for that update, Ron. We will move on to an update from probation, and I see Melanie Stauffer is with us back this month. Welcome back, and we look forward to hearing your monthly update. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of you. So I'll start with the regular data that I report out on. We have 148 youth who are being served through the Assessment Center Investigations Unit. So again, that's our intake unit where we look at the cases and assess if we can divert some of the youth rather than sending them to the DA's office. So I was also asked to provide a little bit of additional information in terms of new referrals, just to help everyone have a better understanding of what's included in that 148 youth. So 49 of those youth were new referrals during the month of March. We have 115 youth who are on supervision, and that includes both informal 6 months of informal probation and formal probation. We have 0 youth in placement, which we're always happy about because that means that youth are remaining in their homes. 5 youth who are considered non-minor dependents. So they were previously in placement and now they're receiving that additional extended foster care money and services. We have 8 youth who have been put on informal diversion contracts. So the number's gone up just a little bit, which is a good thing. We have 3 youth on 90-day contracts and 5 youth who are on 6-month contracts, and that's diversion, so they're not on probation. 2 youth left at DJJ, and with the way that things are going, I anticipate that we will see that they're going up for their parole board hearings either this year or next year. So we've already had 3 come back, so that's good. 16 probation officers currently. So we've gone down by a couple of POs due to retirement, and yeah, so that's that. We have 10 youth, and I know that this is a number, Mr. Bocanegra, that you want us to report out on. So 10 youth who have gang orders and are being supervised in intensive probation. Let's see what else. And then the breakdown for race, the youth that we're serving, 58% of our youth are of Hispanic, Latino descent. 15% are Black or African American. 10% are white. 7% come up as other race, ethnicity, or origin. And 5% are Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. 3% are Asian. And then we have 1% that's unknown, which is kind of odd. So I'm not quite sure why that is. And those are the numbers. Any questions?
I have a question, of course.
Yeah.
First of all, Melanie, so helpful. Like, I love knowing the 49 new referrals. That is the first time I felt like I have a handle on what's happening there and all the breakdowns you gave. So if I were to have 49 new referrals a month, and I don't know if that's typical or not, what percentage of that would be a letter of reprimand, but not on informal probation? What percentage goes on to formal probation, and what percentage might get referred to the DA? And this would be like total ballpark gut feeling about this.
Yeah, so I'm already prepared to answer that question because I figured. The actual case number, so 16 of those youth were assessed for diversion. So that would be letter of reprimands, victim impact awareness referrals, assessments with the HRS clinician to determine if they are eligible for either a 90-day contract or 6-month contract.
Mhm.
And petty theft program. 14 of the youth were either referred to traffic, so it was a violation that the traffic court could hear, or referred out of county. So sometimes we get youth who come into San Mateo County, commit an offense, and it's not a really serious offense, so we can refer those to their county. And 19 of the 49 cases were referred to the DA's office, and that's because it was either a mandatory, we had to send the referral, or a send, which means, for example, a youth previously was on probation, terminated, came back because of a new offense, so we have to send those cases. So that's just one example.
And of the 16 that you assessed for diversion, were there any for which you essentially took no action?
That can happen too, yes. I didn't track down, to that number, but yes, that can happen as well.
It can happen, but it wouldn't be reflective of a big category.
Small, very small percentage,
Okay.
yeah.
Great,
And
thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and then in terms of services that we're providing for our youth families, we're still doing the same thing. We're back essentially pre-COVID, back in the field, seeing youth and families in the homes, in school. Youth and families are coming up to the office. So we definitely have resumed our responsibilities in that way.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
Yeah, and Karen?
Go ahead.
Oh, I think you're muted.
I've got to unmute myself. Hold on. I just wanted to clarify so we understand that the youth on electronic monitoring, I think we had 20 last month. Did you mention that this month?
Yeah, I didn't look that number up. Jahan, do you by chance have the EMP number? Otherwise, I can look it up real quick.
And those 20 youth are not included in the numbers anywhere else because they could be potentially on probation or pending a hearing.
Yes.
And
well, it is possible that of the numbers that I've reported on, that some of those youth are on EMP because they are either going through the assessment center investigations phase or they are on probation, and we have them on EMP either as a sanction or the court released the youth pending their court hearing.
Okay.
So yes, they would be included in that number.
And the non-minor dependent status youth were previously in placement, so they're not included in that supervised probation number.
They are, yes, they are included in that.
Oh, they are. So that part of the 115 includes the 5 who are non-minor dependent status.
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about the 3 youth from DJJ who are back at YSC now?
Not back at YSC. So once there's a parole board hearing, we do a re-entry report based on the information that DJJ provides us. And then we go out and we look at the house where they're going to live. Usually they're returning back to their family members. And then we write a re-entry report for the court and let the court know that we are in agreement with the youth being released from DJJ, and then they're on probation supervision for roughly a year.
Okay,
If they're successful, then we recommend termination.
okay.
I
So
think
those are,
that's
you
good.
are included in our numbers for supervised probation right now.
Yes. Except for, so the 2 youth that are still at DJJ, we don't include in our total
Right.
number of supervised youth, because in a way they're kind of off the books because they're at DJJ. As soon as they come back, we assign them to a probation officer for supervision and support.
So will there be a situation where those 2 youth might come back to youth services, or is it just right now we're just kind of waiting for the clock to run out on their time at DJJ and then they get parole? And
Yeah, and it could be that maybe there are some behavioral issues. And so, but to my knowledge, from the last invoice that I looked at, they're not scheduled to go before their parole board. I think it's either later this year or next year. And DJJ is supposed to be closing effective 2023. So we'll see what happens. I think what's happening is if the youth are exhibiting good behavior, then they're getting released early. And so that's what we've seen with the last 3.
I see. Okay, thank you so much. That was very helpful. I'm starting to put all the pieces together. So I appreciate your patience in answering all the questions and providing us with that additional detailed information.
Yes, no problem. And I still owe Susan some data, so I'll get on that. I'll be working on that soon. And Paul, you had a question?
Yes, good evening, and thank you so much for your presentation this evening to the community as well as the commission. My question is, during this review, like when a youth is going before a parole board and you do this review, are we looking at data, for instance, that the kid has maybe a gang-related assault with a deadly weapon, that this kid received maybe, criminal and gangs anonymous, here some sort of treatment for the community's sake, right? Because we sentenced him there to receive a certain kind of treatment. Are we checking on this type of data to make sure that this kid received the treatment that he was sent there to receive? Is there something like in a report, that a checklist that we look at, or documentation that helps the youth? Because this would be very important information before the reintegration phase takes place. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yes, we do. We receive a full report from DJJ with all of the programming that they've participated in, and they wouldn't be eligible for a parole board hearing if they hadn't completed their treatment. That is a part of the process. And Kate?
Thanks. Also, one thing to add, Paul, that I heard from young people when we did our focus groups with DJJ was that actually oftentimes those whose releases were delayed was because they hadn't been able to get the services. So there were things, particular programs that they had been ordered to have, but that weren't being offered for COVID or whatever the reason was. So that is often sometimes a component that delays release, for what it's worth.
Thank you so much for that feedback there. And do you know what the next steps are for a youth, for instance, that received fragmented services because maybe the pandemic, COVID, like many of our youth out here in the community, have fallen through the cracks? How can we, the community, ensure that the youth is going to receive the treatment either through his reintegration? How do we make sure that happens? And just maybe a next step if that is the case. Thank you, Kate. That is very good information.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, again, this is what I understand from the young people. And the sense that I got was that was the responsibility of the board, the review board, to ensure that those pieces happen so that when they were transferred back to their communities, probation had reports of, completed services and those pieces. But certainly I don't have a great answer beyond that.
Okay, thank you, Melanie and everyone, for your update and questions. The other part of our update from probation usually is to get an update from Ms. Clark at the YSC. So I will move us on and turn it over to Jehan Clark.
Really quick.
Welcome.
We have 16 males in custody at the YSC.
Hey, Ms. Clark.
Uh-huh.
Something maybe a little off with your mic. I'm not sure.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. We currently have 16 male youth in custody at the YSC, 1 at camp. We have resumed all of our normal services and operations. And just going back to the EMP question, we have 30 youth on EMP.
You said 1 at camp, and I think you meant 1 female at Camp Kemp. Is that right?
Yes.
And are there still 4 going through the Girls Empowerment Program coming daily? Sorry?
2.
Oh, down to 2. Okay. Commissioner Rasmussen, you have a question?
I do, thank you. It's more of an acknowledgement. I just want to acknowledge Jehan for getting the kids the pillows. When we were there on Sunday, the kids had pillows, and they explained to me that it was the first time that all of them woke up in the morning and had like lines on their face from sleeping so well, and they are so appreciative of the pillows. So thank you so much for putting that into place. I am grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ms. Clark, I have one other question. When you say that you've resumed normal services, what does that include? Like what has changed? Yeah, what is there something that has come back that has been on hold because of COVID?
I believe at this point, all of our service providers have come back in person. For a while there, we had 1 or 2 who were still offering services virtually. But at this time, I believe all of them have resumed actually coming back in person.
That's great. And in past months, I think you've given the ethnic breakdown of the youth that are in the hall. Do you have that?
I will put that in the chat.
Okay, sounds good.
And is each one reach one gone now? Like, are the kids getting any extra support on credit recovery?
I believe success centers, they are still coming in. I don't know if they're doing credit recovery.
Okay.
I do know Harold is delivering program.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We're going a little longer than is in the agenda for updates, but that was a lot of great information. Ms. Clark and Ms. Stuffer, thank you so much for your reports and updates. We really appreciate it. It's very educational for all the commissioners, I'm sure, as well for members of the public who are here. Before we go on to an update from John Fong from Children and Family Services, I guess I wanted to stop here and ask if there is any other public comment on the updates we've heard so far. Okay, great. Then why don't we move on to an update from Children and Family Services. And usually in the agenda packet, we have a report on the latest month's data or numbers. And this time I'm gonna screen share it. Actually, can I screen share? Yes, I can. Looks like I can. And John, I'll pull that up while you start your update.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. And sorry I wasn't able to get the report by the deadline to include in the agenda. Don't have a whole lot of updates outside of, we're ramping up, our numbers are ramping up as of the first of the year, really back to pre-COVID numbers officially as it as it relates to calls to our hotline, as well as our front-end investigations. Caseloads have dropped significantly over the past 2 years, so we will anticipate that our caseloads as a result also ramp up over the next 18 months to 2 years, kind of reflecting the the 2 years that we saw pretty steep declines. Just walk you through the data here really quick. On 1A, you're going to find 139 total youth. This includes our non-minor dependents, our young adults, about 40% out of county. Outside of the Bay Area, looking at about 14% who are outside of the contiguous Bay Area counties. We are proud of our minor placements, those in 2A, currently at a 29.3% out of county rate. Historically, we've been higher than that. So it's been a concerted effort to try to keep our youth here in county, going to continue to resource up and try to figure out ways to find placements for our young people, foster placements with resource families or otherwise in county. So certainly high on our priority list. Non-minor dependents, that's where we see a jump out of county up to 56%. For obvious reasons, very expensive to live here in county. So that's one of the reasons, certainly, but also trying to strategize there to work with our young people who are unable to remain in county, some of them by choice. That said, placements by race and ethnicity, API, almost 10%, Black 13%, Latino, Latinx 51%, and white at 25%. And then for our non-minor dependents, pretty close, 12% for API, 14% for Black, Latino at 52%, and white at about 21%. Relative placement was a discussion here previously. We are ramping up there as well, which we are proud of. Almost at 38%, we're trying to target about 45% in relative placement. So we are getting closer to our targets there for relative placements for our young people. STRTPs, just 6 young people in STRTP level of care currently. And that's split equally at 33% between Black, Latino, and white young people. And finally, 10 youth in 241.1 status. That's our dual jurisdiction youth. The half are Latino at 50%, Black at 30%, API 10%, and white at 1%, just one youth in each of those categories. Open to any questions. We're certainly safety and health provision. So we've been out in the field since the beginning of this. We continue to be out in the field full force. Some of our supportive services continue to be a hybrid model or virtual. By and large, we have a lot of our staff, most of our staff back in office, some of which are in hybrid model as well, particularly those who are field staff. But things are going well for CFS to kick off 2022. Any questions?
I see Karen and Paul with their hands up. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify what 241.1 dual jurisdiction youth is about. If you could just review that.
Yeah, and I might lean on Judge Cadet and Ron Reyes as well to step in to provide a more technical answer to that. But from the child welfare lens, it is those who are dependents under Welfare and Institutions Code 300, and also under the court's jurisdiction on the 602 side. Ron or Judge Cadet, is there a more technical answer that you would want to provide?
No, I think that's a correct high-level explanation.
Our between probation and ourselves, we have a protocol in place to identify who will take on lead as the lead agency for these young people, whether that's on the probation side of the house or on the child welfare side of the house.
Thank you very much.
Paul,
Sure.
Go ahead. Commissioner Bocanegra.
Good evening, Mr. Fong, and thank you so much for the data. I am very impressed and I'm very appreciative of the work that you put into this. monthly. The question that I have are for the youth that are outside of our county. We mentioned cost, of course, the cost of living. Are these youth considered homeless on data?
No, these are young people who are in a placement. Just happens to be out of county.
Right. So if they turn 18 and they wish to go off on their own, are they still considered to be properly placed or like on a follow-up? My concern is that they're not home. We've not ostracized them. I don't want to use that term, but we've sent them out of our county away from their natural environment, which is recognized by the community and the public as home. And we're moving them away from that, but we're not considering them homeless. Is there a roadmap, a restorative roadmap back for these youth, maybe to find an apartment at the age of 18 or 21, so that if they would like to come back home, to make that possible? Do we have a program set up for something of that nature?
Yeah, we internally provide the service through our independent living program, Paul, but there's lots of other resources throughout our community as well as in every jurisdiction throughout the state who provides independent living programming. That does include some transitional housing programs. I won't get into the weeds of all the different iterations of what is available for young people. It certainly differs from community to community. One of our priorities certainly is keeping young people in their community of origin. We know that everything, all that comes along with that, peer groups, school, supports, church, whatever it might be for these young people, it is an issue that we are trying to address. To answer your question about the 18-year-olds and those who age out of our system or become non-minor dependents, we're strategizing as we speak. We have invested lots of funds to come to some agreements with developments here in county to provide subsidized housing for those young people in particular as a transition back into our community, temporary in nature. Those developments are in the process of breaking ground. At least one currently is breaking ground, but we're looking at upwards of 24 to 30 units for our young adults to bring back to our community. So making some headway. We have a ways to go in all transparency. I think this is an issue that you point out that we're all aware of, that is a priority of our county, not just my department, but our county, to bring the young people back to our county. And certainly something we're trying to address. For me, it starts with those minor placements, right? So I like seeing that number for our minor placements reducing out of county, higher likelihood that we maintain them in county if we start there, right?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that very detailed response. And I'm sure the community is very appreciative of the work that you're doing for all of us as well. Thank you, Mr. Fong.
Sure. Thank you, Paul.
All right. Thank you, John. And I'm going to keep us moving along so that we can hopefully get the next section of our agenda completed and have the second hour of our meeting fully available for our longer reports from commissioners and committees. So I don't think that I saw Ms. Janae Luttrell on the Zoom. She often comes to give us an update about from the County Office of Education. So then if she's not here, then I think we'll move on to the next part of our agenda, which is updates from activities of the commission. And we've heard a lot from Janae the last couple of months. So hopefully she'll be back next month and maybe give us a bit more of an update on what's happening at Gateway and the other communities. So the next section of the agenda, again, is for commission activity, and the first person up is Commissioner Enriquez to give us an update on what's going on with membership and recruiting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monroe. So I'm happy to, welcome Sasha again to our commission. Yay, that's great news. We did receive, obviously, Mr. His resignation letter. So right now, we currently have 12 commissioners on our commission. Our max commissioners, it is 15. So recruitment is still ongoing. There is a pipeline of 11 folks who are interested in being part of this commission. So there's a lot of work that I'm doing behind the scenes and trying to move people forward. I have not, although there are 11 interest candidates here, I have not received a single application yet. So we do have our membership committee here, and that's Rebecca, Commissioner Flores, Commissioner Karine, and myself. And actually Commissioner Duty, he was actually part of the interview committee, but he is no longer here. So I will be looking for an additional member to be part of the membership committee to make sure that we're staying on task. We currently have about 3 seats open, so go ahead and please share if you guys know anybody that might be interested in the commission. Just have them go through the website and the application is there. I know that our website needs to be updated as it is not up to date. Yeah,
I think we have an update on that coming next from Commissioner Rasmussen.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Commissioner, I didn't mean to interrupt. Commissioner Enriquez, are you, do you have more on membership?
No, that's, I'm wondering if you guys have any questions, commissioners has any questions or clarifications. I'm happy to share more. Thanks.
I see Commissioner Huber-Levy with her hand up.
Hi, thank you, Roxana. I just wondered, with the 11 interested potential candidates, are we having discussions with them? I don't think I see any potential candidate attending our meeting tonight.
Yeah, so we actually do have a candidate here who is
good
attending. So yes, those conversations are happening, and I'm just waiting for email responses, and just it takes time. So I'm very,
of course, I just wanted to see if we can help in any way. If somebody might just want to chat with somebody and have a different viewpoint of what it's like to be on the commission, or if they're interested in specific projects, that I just wanted to offer, being available to give someone a call and have a chat, or you can give them my name to reach out if they have some specific questions.
yeah, that's very very kind of you, Karine. Thank you. I will keep that in mind, and I know that you're there, so thank you. Yeah, I will be sending out an email to our membership committee to kind of go over the list and those conversations that have been happening.
Great. Commissioner Newton, that's the first time I get to say that. See your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Commissioner Wilson had encouraged me to volunteer before joining the commission to get a sense of what the work was. And I know we're still determining our projects for 2022, but I was wondering if that opportunity has been extended to any of the potential candidates, and if there's any interest in them volunteering.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you, Sasha, for taking note of that. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
thanks.
All right, great. If there aren't any other questions, then why don't we move on to the next subject? Try to get us to the second hour on time. And I think Commissioner Rasmussen is next to tell us about marketing and social media.
Thank you. So I'll start where Roxana, Commissioner Enriquez left off. So I'll start with our website. So it's a painstakingly slow process to rebuild this website. So I've been talking with our official secretary who helps with these tasks, Ariana Castaneda. And so I think the best way to do this is to create a Google Doc. So we've gotten more things up. As you see, there's more things that have come up, but there's a vast number of things that are still missing. And unfortunately, I don't know what all of those are. So I'll be creating a Google document in our Drive. So if you notice that there's something that's missing, if you could add to that, that would be extremely helpful in sort of recreating that, because we are really recreating the entire website. And it may take another month or two before it's completely restored. And then I wanted to touch base as far as our social media working group, our project. We are coming to the end of our Spotlight series. And so we have 2 more commissioners to do, and we'll be phasing in to our introduction welcome campaign for our new commissioners that are coming in, sort of a condensed version of the Spotlight, right? To welcome, let the community know who's serving on the commission. And I'd like to dedicate some time to assist with recruiting. So that also applies with Commissioner Enriquez. Once this Spotlight series is done, then we can start to really work at recruiting on social media. So that's where that stands there. That'll free up a considerable amount of time for me to focus on recruiting, to assist with the focus on recruiting. Our Twitter accounts, YouTube and Instagram, they're all continuing to gain followers, and our engagement continues to be up, and our impressions and profile visits, those are all doing well. Like, for instance, in the last 28 days, we're 80% above what we were for last month. So we're consistently growing and we're doing well. And thankfully, we have that direct me link that still has some of the really important information that's still missing on the website, so the community can go there. And that's listed on Twitter and Instagram for people to access that information. I don't think I'm missing anything else. So that would be the marketing social media report. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, that's Paul applauding, not raising his hand. Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Johanna. Great work. Let's the next item was Commissioner Huber-Levy going to give us an update on legislative coordination.
Well, you've heard from Ron Reyes about his work on a current bill that is very exciting. And he may have downplayed it a little bit, but I think it's pretty important because record sealing alone doesn't give juveniles a completely fresh start. And having a presumption that when the juvenile court terminates jurisdiction, the judge should also dismiss the juvenile record unless the dismissal would endanger public safety would be very valuable for juveniles. So it eliminates the need for them to actually seal their record afterwards. I gave you a written update after the last meeting on some bills that we're tracking. I also have prepared for your reading pleasure a little 2-page overview of the legislative history of youth transfer law in California. And I found this process very valuable for me to really understand how far we've come and where we need to go. And I think it is a wonderful context for the resolution that we passed taking a position on youth transfer. And it will also help you understand the recent legislative activity. There is one bill currently in the legislature that seeks to, again, push the process of keeping more youth in youth court. So I'm hoping that you'll find this valuable, and I'm not going to walk you through it right now. I'm just going to circulate it. I'll attach it to the minutes as well and circulate it to the commissioners, and be happy to discuss it further. But hopefully it's self-explanatory, but it just gives you a really good breakdown on where the pendulum swung very heavily towards dismantling the youth justice system and how we've been rebuilding it over the years. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Huber-Levy. Anyone have any questions about legislative coordination? Okay, great. We'll keep moving, and I'll send it back to Commissioner Rasmussen, who has, I think, some announcements or other updates about inspections for this year.
I do, and actually I'm up for the next two, so, and they sort of correlate, so hopefully
Okay.
I'll just give a combined report if that's okay for both of them. So
Sure.
Monroe and I met with both Judge Edizade and Judge Cadet back in March. Excuse me, Chair LeBuise has asked me to take over to be the court liaison. So we had the meeting. I understand that there's traditionally a quarterly meeting that takes place, and that's where Judge Edizade was speaking about the inspections. Monroe probably remembers her concern about the inspections was that she didn't want youth in the community to see or interact with youth in the facility. She felt that for confidentiality reasons, and maybe Monroe can remember more specifically because he was there for that conversation as well. Those were her concerns. And so I just added that to our sheet because that's the way I was instructed to do. So
I think specifically I'll just jump in and say, like, there's the risk that, you know, someone who maybe is still in high school might recognize someone in a facility when they're going through, and that puts some risk to confidentiality. So I think that was the concern.
Thank you for explaining it. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that is how that came to be. And it wasn't a question we brought up. It was something that actually came to us.
No, I know. So I guess I want to do a little bit of a pushback, like on confidential. I think this is a question that should be answered sort of authoritatively, but I don't think it's a good precedent to have a commissioner, and the role of commissioners is to inspect. And we have a need of confidentiality and then exclude our youth commissioners from that process. I think I also don't understand the difference between inspecting the school, which is allowed, where they're the same kids, versus inspect at Hillcrest and at Canyon Oaks versus inspecting the unit. To me,
it was my understanding that as long as the children weren't in class when the school inspection was being taken place and there was no opportunity for them to interact with one another, that they would be fine in doing the inspection. Is the problem that Judge Edizade explained to us, as Monroe explained, is that she doesn't want them interacting in that capacity. So
I'm going to suggest, hey, Commissioner Wilson and Rushman, sorry, I'm just going to suggest, in the interest of time, because this seems like something that is worth discussing in more detail, that we don't have time for on the agenda
the next
tonight.
step. It doesn't have to be, right.
No,
I'm just asking for the next step to be taken in understanding this.
Yeah, so why don't we spend time before the next meeting in figuring this out, right? It was a brief conversation with Judge Edizade and Judge Cadet, for example. So, you know, we could go back and have more discussion about that and have a clearer recommendation when we come back to the next meeting. That's what I would suggest. It's a good point. It's worth discussing further. So, but let's do it. Let's do it outside of this meeting and then come back and report back at the next meeting.
So the other court liaison update basically was covered earlier about one of the things that came about in the meeting is that the judges would really like to see commissioners make a commitment to at least attend court one time per year in the calendar year, because it really gives you a deeper understanding of how our system works, who our justice partners are, and just what we're dealing with, who these children are, who the families are. So they're really encouraging that. I'm always happy if you want to tag along and go to lunch and go to court, I'm here and I'll go with you. So, and if you need help coordinating a visit, I'm here to help you do that as well. So going back to, sorry, I put my papers here. So going back to inspection. So I sent out on Sunday, mid-morning, I sent out the signups for inspections, and those are live. I'll drop the link in the chat. If I know sometimes we get a lot of emails and you might need it to be bumped up. So I'll put the link in the chat. We're short commissioners this year, so I've had to take one spot off of every inspection, but I've added some back, and I'm just trying to make sure that our teams are balanced. So we do have some commissioners who have 50, 60 hours to commit, and then we have other commissioners who may only have 4 or 5 hours to commit. So the goal is to get really balanced teams, of folks. So that's up and that's ready to go. And I've created a new file in the Google Drive for the 2022 inspections, and I'll be dropping in forms and guidelines and information in there between now and our next meeting. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to assign our teams and get scheduling for our inspections next month. So I think that is both reports. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, that's great. We're moving the process down the road, and I think if we get people assigned next month and then get started over the summer, we'll be right on schedule. Thank you, Commissioner Rasmussen. All right, great. It's only a few minutes past 6:15. We're into our second hour, and so now we're gonna go a bit deeper on a couple of topics. The first of which is the final report from the Committee on Diversion Programs, and then the second topic is going to be a report from the committee that has been working on mission and aspirations and projects. So we'll talk a bit about potential projects for 2022 and an idea for having a commissioner retreat, which that's a teaser. We'll get more to that in the item. But first, I will turn it over to Commissioners Swope and Willis, who authored our report on diversion programs. Who's gonna lead it off? Commissioner Swope or Willis?
Yes. I move that the commission accept and approve the report on diversion and its recommendations. And I have some things that we probably need to change that have been suggested since the packet went out. Monroe suggested not changing any of the content, but reordering it. And I'm trying to see if I can share the screen to show what here we go. This is what Monroe suggested, and I find that it makes a great deal of sense. I think it's kind of hard to envision it if we just talk about it, so I figured I would lay it out for you. I also
and sorry, Commissioner Swope, I just will say that my suggestion was essentially to bring up the conclusions and recommendations up to the top of the report, and also to kind of place primary emphasis on the report on the diversion programs. So talk about those first before talking about school resource officers. There's valuable information about both, but the strength of the recommendation really is about diversion programs. So that's the main gist of my suggestion for just reordering some of the sections without changing the content.
That made perfect sense to me, so I'm happy to do that. I also liked Monroe's suggested title, which would be JJDPC Report on Diversion Programs and School Resource Officers in San Mateo County, so that it encompasses everything that's in there. I also had a suggestion from Karen for a change in the write-up to the South San Francisco PD section on page 20. She felt that in our interview with the SRO, it was ambiguous whether there was an actual partnership between the South San Francisco Unified School District and the Boys and Girls Club to run the South San Francisco Unified School District's Alternatives to Suspension program, or whether the Boys and Girls Club simply provided space. I put a call in to the Boys and Girls Club and I have not heard back. So I have made the change that she suggested. And the last paragraph, the first sentence would read, SSFUSD may refer students who would otherwise be suspended or expelled to their alternative to suspension program, which is located at the Boys and Girls Club. Melissa also said that she would like me to indicate whether SROs were wearing their guns and their bulletproof vests when they were on campus. They are required to do so. They do not have a choice. And I have put that in wherever I was told that they were wearing their duty belt, which includes their gun and a bulletproof vest. She also updated a statistic on page 12. We are now the 13th most racially disparate county in California, not the 10th. So I've made those changes. I see Karen has a question.
I have a few little questions, just as I was rereading it. I was just kind of, and I thought I could just run through them quickly with you. On your table 1 of eligibility criteria, I was just confused. For the City of San Mateo program and the City of Redwood City, is it youth are accepted into the diversion program if they either live or reside in the city or have been arrested in the city in both cases?
That is my understanding.
Okay, then that's clear. And I also just on the tables under diversion contract components and services on page 7, there are blank spots. And I'm just wondering what the blank spots mean.
The blank spots mean that that is not available in that jurisdiction. Oh, the only thing that's available is where there is an X or an indication of it.
Okay, because we have no and yes and blank. So what's the difference between a no and a blank?
Which table are you referring to?
Table 5 to start. Possible diversion contract components on page 7.
Yeah, so it says, yeah, if they told us they did have it, there's a yes. And if they told us they didn't have it, there's a no.
And if it's blank?
And it's probably, it should be no, probably. Yeah.
Okay, so I think you should probably just, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blanks that maybe should be no's.
Okay.
And then it's the same, I think, oh, that one continues on to page 8, and then same comment on table 6, services during diversion. There's just 2 spots for county probation and City of San Mateo for tattoo removal. That maybe those are no.
I'm not clear on that. I saw something, maybe Melanie can tell us whether or not that should be a yes or a no. Because I saw somewhere that there were a group of entities that did allow for tattoo removal. I know for a fact it's based in the Sheriff's Department, and the City of Redwood City does make use of it. I'm not clear entirely on whether county probation and the City of San Mateo does.
Yes, Susan, we can refer youth for tattoo removal.
Okay, so I should put
I may have missed that when I looked at the document.
Okay, so I should put a yes there. Will do. And Kimber's not here, so. Any other questions?
Okay, so on page 24, when you are summarizing the San Mateo Police Department's diversion program, the last bullet point, it says, in terms of the youth who meet the following criteria, lives or goes to school in the City of San Mateo or has been arrested in the City of San Mateo. I guess that's covered in first time offense. Is that implicit that they have been arrested and referred? Yeah. And then I note that you have a paragraph on page 25 that says, after successful completion of the contract, the youth's case is closed and no formal action is taken by the juvenile justice system. They do have a record in probation's database that can be sealed when they're 18.
Mm-hmm.
Does that also apply in Redwood City?
No.
Okay.
If they go through the diversion program in Redwood City, there is no file that has been opened with probation.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just have a comment. I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who worked on this report. This is a lot of time, and I'm very hopeful to kind of work towards this with you guys and kind of do like follow-ups, because I know that like police departments might be doing something else different. So, you know, I was wondering if, you know, we could do like a follow-up after this. you know, this whole report, like what exactly are we gonna do with this report? That's kind of.
Well, it says in the report what I want us to do with it.
Okay, yeah, so I did read all that, but I'm wondering like, I guess how can, I guess a follow-up to with all these people that you guys interview, you know, to make sure that this document doesn't just go, just another document.
Hey, Commissioner Enriquez, I think, sorry, Susan, if I could jump in. That's a great topic for us to discuss generally about projects when we get to the section on projects. And because, you know, the committee that was working on mission, aspiration, and projects, we had a really good discussion about all of our projects and you know what we do with them, right? Like what follow-up there might be. So I couldn't agree with you more that a lot of great work went into this report. I want to thank everyone who worked on it, and I agree. You know, let's use it and let's use it well. So let's get a little bit more into that in the next section of the agenda. But more generally, but specifically, Susan Gar, sorry, go ahead.
I would like to address that. I think one thing is that the situation with diversion programs and with SROs is very fluid. It's not something that's static. This report could need to be updated next week or even tomorrow. And I would really like us to make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors to support having a diversion program like Peerpoint that is available to every child, every youth in San Mateo County, and that is available not only to youth who've been arrested, but also to youth who have been identified as having at-risk of behavior and are in danger of being either suspended or expelled from their school. Because once you have a child out of school, the chances are that they're going to get into trouble rise exponentially. There's a comment from Melissa in the chat saying, list the status of diversion for every jurisdiction so that they can confirm if the city is covered by the sheriff's program. If it's not listed, they're not covered. That has been made very clear to me by Manuel Velarde, who manages it. I asked him that specifically because I thought perhaps any child arrested in San Mateo County could go to the sheriff's diversion program. They cannot unless they're arrested in the sheriff's jurisdiction. So I hope that.
Melissa, I think you're on mute. You might have been trying to say something.
My suggestion was to just spoon feed it to the lazy reader who will only read. There will be many people who will only read the first section and never turn to subsequent pages. So that's why I was making that recommendation to front load just da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're going to reorder it the way.
Exactly.
So that's right up front, so that's what people are going to read.
Yeah, great.
I don't see any other questions.
Yeah, are there any other questions or comments? And maybe before we move to a vote, I would invite public comment on this report and on this report. Are there any members of the public that want to say anything about this report and the diversion programs? Okay, well, the report speaks for itself, and like I said, great work to the committee. So there is a motion on the floor. Susan, would you just restate the motion for us?
Sure. I move that the commission approve the report and its recommendations. And it does not need a second because there were 3 of us who worked on it.
Right. All right, if there's no further discussion on the report, why don't we do a roll call vote? And I will lead that in the order that I see you on my screen, so it might be somewhat random. Commissioner Enriquez. How do you vote? Abstain. I am next, and I will vote to approve this report. Commissioner Swope,
Yes.
Commissioner Huber-Levy,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasmussen,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Nori,
Yes.
Commissioner Bocanegra. Commissioner Bocanegra, you're on mute. Or maybe you're not there. We'll come back to you. Commissioner Aurora,
Yes.
and I believe I got everyone who was present. Is there a commissioner I missed? No. Commissioner Bocanegra, are you still there with us? Can you come off mute? Okay, he may not be able to vote or comment, but I believe we have a majority of people approving the report, so the motion passes. Congratulations to the team for producing this report, and perfect, I think, to segue to the next section, which is to talk for the committee that had been doing work on mission and aspirations and projects, to talk about what we've discussed in the past month, and that includes talking a bit about, what generally do we do with a project when it's done or when a report is submitted. So we'll get to that. I think there are, so the committee that was working on this included myself and Commissioner Rasmussen joined us this past month. Also, Commissioners Enriquez, Swope, Huber-Levy, and Bocanegra. And I believe I got everybody there. And we did produce a document with a list of suggested projects that the commission work on. So I wanted to share that first and provide some descriptions and take questions about what these suggested or proposed projects for the commission are. But also keep in mind that we also had a more sort of general discussion about essentially, might we have too many projects? We want to make sure that we do the most that we can with the projects, that they have the intended effects, that that we have time to do the follow-up, etc. So if it makes sense, I will start with sharing my screen with a list of the proposed projects. Why does it keep doing that? Okay, how about that? There we go. Can everybody see that? Yes, I think so. All right, so other commissioners that were on this committee, feel free to jump in if there are particular projects that you would like to explain a little bit more. I guess I will start. We thought about projects that align with our new aspirations, and the first two on the list, the second one exists already, and we're recommending that we continue to do outreach to elected officials. But then, because of the pandemic, the past couple of years, we have not been able to do a lot to, as much as we wanted to do outreach and connect with youth and their families. And we want to do more in the coming year to bring their voices to the commission. So that would be a suggested new project. Does one of the other commissioners that was on the committee want to talk about collaboration opportunities with other JJDPCs?
I think this was one that Paul had originally raised, and
I I believe Commissioner Wilson also has suggested this in the past. No? Oh, no. I see her. She's not. Okay, maybe it was Paul.
Well, in the meeting that I was in, Paul had raised it, and
Right.
the idea would be to understand opportunities to, kind of share information and build, kind of coalition or support with other JJDPCs to perhaps,
Yeah.
have more power in terms of any impact that we can have for positive change, and to learn, just to understand what they might be doing and how they might be doing it. And
Yeah, for
I think it's kind
example.
of like a benchmarking exercise.
Yeah, right.
We have done that in the past.
And currently the Sonoma count JJDPC is doing some outreach, I believe, to try to connect with other JJDPCs on a particular topic.
Now they're going to set up a Zoom call.
Yeah.
So, I think any of us who want to be on it can probably be on it, as long as it's not a quorum.
Yeah. So another, I'll go to the fourth one, which would just be a continuation of work that Commissioner Telleria and I did when we submitted a report 2 years ago about substance abuse and mental health programs in the county. So this would be a follow-up to that, to to advocate for new ones or to fill gaps where we see there might be gaps. And then I added an opportunity here for commissioners to get involved with the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council and also the subcommittee of the Coordinating Council on realignment. Currently, I am the representative to those committees and subcommittees, but I would be happy and would think it would be productive to get input from other commissioners about what's going on there. So we might have a subcommittee to meet regularly to talk about that. So that's another idea here for a project. Does any other members of the committee want to take the next one?
I think this is one that I was raising in terms of responding to some of the youth comments when we interviewed them for education, that they were concerned that they were not getting the education at a level that would allow them to fulfill their academic aspirations. And they were also concerned about transfer credits. And I heard from, I think Melissa had been very kind of trying to understand how the transfer credits were being dealt with, and maybe there's some concern that there's still some issues with, it sounds like they possibly were resolved, but I always find that when you get down to actual data, sometimes things become very clear. And even though the processes may have the best intentions, since we were hearing directly from youth that they were concerned about their educational future, it seemed incumbent upon us to try to follow up on that and satisfy ourselves that everything that should be done is being done, and perhaps there's more to be done that we could identify. That was my kind of aspiration as a result of my experience doing the educational inspections last year.
Yeah, and there are several projects here that our committees is recommending we might want to take up that relate to the new aspiration that we added to our list of aspirations regarding transition and reentry. We said at the beginning of the year, this is a topic we wanted to delve deeper into, and so if we're going to do that, then then there may be there is some more investigation that we want to do into specific areas, including education and housing. Was a suggestion from Commissioner Bocanegra. Johanna, do you want to say something about the gang intervention and prevention project?
Sure. Would this be the best time to do that, or should I wait until the end?
Why don't you just give a brief like headline or overview so people understand what this is, and then when we get through the list, if you want to make a motion to get that one started, then you can do that.
Okay, so the project description on this is in order to reduce incidents of violent juvenile crime in San Mateo County, we must understand the role of gangs and the role that they currently play in the lives of our San Mateo County youth. And so the San Mateo County Juvenile Gang Project team would work with local law enforcement agencies, gang task force, and reformed adult gang members with lived experience to help us gain insight and collect data on the following: the current status of juvenile gangs in San Mateo County, the areas where gang violence is occurring in San Mateo County, the types of juvenile gang related crimes being committed, how juvenile gangs are impacting our schools. And then we would document the programs and strategies that have been used to date and identify any new programs that may be existing that haven't been tried. So that is in a nutshell what that project would entail.
Sounds like a really interesting one. Okay, I think that let's see the list, the remaining projects on the list. Diversion programs, this would be a follow-up to the report that we approved to take next steps to actually advocate based on the report. And school attendance is a current and ongoing project that we would that we think is important and should continue. And then out of the diversion report, as Susan noted, there's a lot of information about school resource officers as well, and so there's potential for more follow-up there, and that is another suggested project. Since that's a real changing and active issue, so having a team to kind of some commissioners to keep track of that would be a suggested project, and then continuing to advocate for more after school care, which is again another sort of ongoing project. So this is a long list. Do commissioners have, before we kind of move on to the discussion about how could we possibly do all this and generally what how we approach projects, do any commissioners or have any questions about this list or specific projects on the list? I think I saw Commissioner Enriquez's hand and Rasmussen go up at the same time, but I'll ask Commissioner Enriquez. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
I just had a comment on the advocating for new after-school care programs. Right now, I know that a lot of the state is, bringing a lot of funding to the districts locally, and just wanted to mention that parents all over the state are campaigning and attending a meeting with all these head people of education from the office, the treasurer, education from state, and a lot of parents are advocating for these funds that came through ELO, Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. A lot of districts don't know what to do with that money because there's no guidance from the state. So right now, a lot of parents are advocating for that. So I'm just wanting to invite you guys, if you guys are interested in just hearing that, that meeting is going to be in May 19 or 12. But I'll send that information. I'm very passionate about this because a lot of families are still not getting the programming that the students need, especially in all these pockets of San Mateo County. So I'll just write that information there. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I can just comment on that, very timely, because I'll give you an update on what we have been working on in terms of our advocacy in this area. And it is exactly as you describe it. It is exactly about the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program funding. So I'll save the rest of my comments for my time.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Thank you. I just had a couple quick questions about PeerPoint. I think that's what the new name is, PeerPoint. Is that correct? Okay, so how many commissioners are currently working on that project, and how long do we anticipate needing to staff that project? Like, will it be wrapping up this year, or what does that look like?
So current commissioners, now that we have Sasha officially, is Karen, Sasha, Austin, me, and Susan-ish.
And as far as timing, I know it's hard to predict, but what do you think?
We need to wrap this by the end of the year, in that we have to, yeah, by the end of the year, but I think it's this year still. That's
Yeah.
my guess, if other people want to weigh in on that.
I'm just, are we going through the projects one by one now? Because
No, well, the peer point program is actually not on the list of projects, which maybe is an oversight from me, but we will get to updates on projects as well in the next section, Commissioner Rasmussen. So any other questions about this list of proposed projects? I see, Commissioner Bocanegra, go ahead.
Yeah, the question that I had, I actually had two questions. The first one was, I sent an email regarding a project regarding outreach to other commissions in neighboring counties and abroad. And then the other thing was, many of these projects here, are we going to include our foster youth and kids that are outside of our county when we're tracking attendance? They're our youth, our community members. And I'd like to see them included more in some of the data that we are tracking, because it's important. I believe that our youth have a restorative roadmap back home to where their natural environment is, if that is in the best interest of the youth, or if that is what the youth want. I believe that they should be included, and I'm hoping that we can do that moving forward when we are tracking data regarding youth. Especially school attendance, the quality of education that they may be receiving that is unfortunately below the quality that we may be providing here in San Mateo County. I would like to synchronize our foster youth with the rest of them, because I believe that that has been the forgotten niche for some time here, and I'd like to draw them in under the limelight that we currently are seeing most of our community youth under. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay, thanks for that. That's a good angle for us to keep an eye on, as particularly around projects that have to do with school attendance and reentry. So thanks for that, Paul. All right, I think this is the right time, Johanna, if you want to make a motion so the purpose of this, let me back up. The purpose of having this discussion about our list of potential projects was to come back to the whole commission and say the committee has drawn up a tentative list or a proposed list here. We wanted to get your input and your thoughts, but we are not yet recommending that we necessarily start all of these projects, because it's a lot, and we can get to more discussion on that. However, Commissioner Rasmussen put together a proposal for getting started on the gang intervention project. And so let's see, I guess I will, on her behalf, kick off here. I'd like to make a motion that from this list of projects that we do select the gang intervention and prevention project and get that one started now, because it's well defined and, in my opinion, an interesting topic that's something that we need to look at. So I'd like to make a motion that we actually get the gang intervention and prevention project started.
Am I allowed to second that motion?
I think you are.
Great, I'll second that motion.
Any on this particular project, any other discussion? And Commissioner Newton, I saw your hand go up. I don't know if it was about this or about something else to do with the projects.
Another question. Yeah, I'm not muted.
Why
Okay.
don't we hold it then if until we get this motion discussed? Any other comment on or questions from the commissioners on getting this particular project kicked off? Commissioner Huber-Levy.
Yeah, I guess I just have a general question about process, because it sounded like we started talking a little bit about resources and ensuring that we have coverage and how many commissioners are spending time on different projects. But in this case, we're not going to be assessing the totality of where we're spending our time, and we're not prioritizing anything. So I thought that part of the discussion was to have kind of some prioritization and ability for the commission to kind of understand where we're putting our resources, and perhaps, where new commissioners would like to feed in, or commissioners who are not as involved in things, and, have that bigger discussion.
Yeah, I think we do need to have that bigger discussion, but could also conceivably say, if there are some commissioners ready to go, then let's get a specific project kicked off. I mean, that's kind of the question on the floor, is should we kick off this particular project or not?
And if I could just
or
add
should we
that-
wait? Yeah.
If I could just add that I've been without a project for 6 months now, so I'm anxious to get back into a project. And I've also been recruiting. I know there's a lot of you who are stretched very thin, so I've sort of recruited a team. So I've been doing all the legwork to try and cover that. So I could have a project. So the presentation, we put the whole package together so we could at least get started on a project. We're going to be into May soon, and I just wanted to at least get a project on the table in this meeting, because then we're going to have inspections, and before you know it, the year's going to be over. So that was the intention behind putting this forward, because it is ready to go.
And I agree with Joanna. I think we should definitely try and get started with this. And I'd also like to join another subcommittee. I'm on the recruiting one, but I'd love to join one more. So
I think this is an important project, and it's going to be a tough one. So
Yeah.
I wish you all the best, Joanna, and you and your team.
All right. Any other discussion on this motion before we have a vote? And again, there's more detail in the one pager that's in the agenda packet about what is involved here, and also the commissioners that that are ready to go, I think. Right, Johanna? Yeah. All right, why don't we do why don't we do a voice vote on this, if that's okay? All in favor of forming a subcommittee to get started on this gang intervention and prevention project, please come off mute, and all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we'll Commissioner Rasmussen, you're free to go.
Thank
I
you
mean,
so
not free to
much.
go, free to kick this off.
Thank you so much.
All right.
You're not free to
So-
go, though.
Not
You're
free to go.
only
Please
free to
don't go.
work harder.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to what I referred to before, we had an interesting discussion in our last meeting of our subcommittee, in which we talked about the fact that we're often running out of time, as we are now at this very moment in these meetings, and so it's hard to actually get to a long discussion on projects, and then also to talk about follow-up on projects, and so it sort of came to, we started thinking that maybe we have too many, but maybe we should also have a discussion about how, as a commission, we can be more effective with follow through and with thoroughness in the areas that we choose to focus in on. and for that purpose, it might be a good idea to have a retreat, which is something that is, I believe, mentioned in our operating policies as something that we might do occasionally. And so my proposal, or I would like to make a motion that the commission find time outside of our public meetings for an afternoon when commissioners could be available for the purpose of talking about how to work most effectively together, and how to work most effectively to see that the investigations and recommendations that we come up with actually are carried through and come to fruition. It's just something that it's very difficult to spend only 20 minutes talking about in one of our public meetings, and I feel like after 2 years of Zoom, a get together for an afternoon with commissioners would be a good idea.
Second.
Second. Okay, great. And that would take us to discussion on this idea. And Sasha, I'm sorry I neglected to circle back to you. I don't know if your question or comment is on this topic or something else, but please, why don't you go ahead now?
Just a question about projects and project evolution. As a newbie, I'm still learning. And I'm curious if any projects ever come out of the inspections, seeing that they're sort of such big investigations on our part.
I think it's a great question. And I mean, I will, Commissioner Rasmussen could say a lot about it because after, for example, the detailed inspection last year of the YSC, there were some small projects that came up, like like ordering pillows for kids to sleep with, which was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. But it's a great question, and just the kind of question, honestly, that I'd like to talk about at this retreat, because that's one example of something that we put a lot of work into that has potential for follow-up, but we've got to figure out how, as a commission and commissioners, to be effective in actually following through, right, on some of those recommendations. So I think that's generally the topic of an afternoon of in-person gathering where we could talk about that.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners about this idea of having a retreat?
Have we talked with council about how we have to set it up? Whether we have to have public communication?
I have not followed up on that. So the question is I do think that there is potential, based on my conversations with Judith Holliver, I do think there is a potential for us to have a meeting that is a retreat that does not necessarily have to be agendized, noticed, open to the public. That said, I think it's also possible that we would have to, and I would welcome any participation from members of the public at that meeting. In fact, the very first meeting of the JJDPC that I ever went to before I was a commissioner was just such a meeting that was agendized and noticed, and I said, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. I'll go to that. And that's how I eventually came to be a commissioner. So I guess the question would be, maybe we should resolve that now, whether or not we should, this retreat should be available for the public to attend or not. I guess I would say that that we should make it open, and if we have people that want to come and make comment and listen in, they're welcome. So I'll include that.
May I suggest one thing?
Yeah,
could we do this on a weekend so that not only the community members can attend, but those who go to school and those who work can also join us? Could we look to schedule it on a weekend?
Yeah, and actually, why don't I adjust the motion to say that the members of the committee that have been working on mission, aspiration, and projects, and it doesn't have to be all of them, but maybe some of them, the motion would be that they organize a retreat, that the commission intend to have a retreat, and then that a subcommittee that includes the people that have been working on mission aspirations and projects actually like go organize the details, figure out the scheduling, when would it work best for people. But the general idea is a full afternoon, probably a weekend, since people work, right?
I mean,
think
like
that would be
1 to
ideal.
4 or 1 to 5, something like
Yeah,
that.
1 to 5, something like that. And we can figure those details out. We don't have to decide right now, but that would be, we'll figure that out. But I agree, that's a good suggestion. Commissioner Huber-Levy.
I just wanted to clarify then, you're suggesting that we do go forward with this as a public meeting.
I am.
I'm in agreement with that. I think it's a great outreach, and you are a
Exactly.
prime example.
Right, there you go. All right, any other discussion on this? Maybe we could move to a vote on holding this retreat as described. A vote that we hold a retreat and that the subcommittee continue to organize it. That is the motion on the floor.
And that it be public.
And that it be public. Thank you. And that it likely be a weekend 1 to 5, something like that. But those details to come. Well, let's do a voice vote. It sounds like there's a lot of support for this. All commissioners in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, terrific. Let's get this retreat organized. We have 10 minutes left in the time that was on the agenda, and as usual, topic of discussion of the retreat. We're running out of time, but I do want to make sure that we have some time for some announcements. And then there was a list of ongoing projects that might have a quick update. One that's been mentioned before is Peerpoint. And Commissioner Wilson, do you have a quick update for us on how that's going?
Yep. So our energy is focused on two things. One is raising money, and the second is trying to ensure sustainability, structure, moving forward. And in terms of raising money, we've raised $120,000 for year 1, $70,000 for year 2, and $20,000 for year 3, we believe. We also have a large grant that we're submitting on Friday. So that's going well. And then there's just lots of conversations about how do we actually pull this thing off. That's my update.
Keep going. Thank you. Commissioner Nori, you have a hand raised?
All right, yeah, I just had a quick question. So is the program as it's going right now just serving youth in like the Sequoia Union High School District, or is it like countywide?
So it's not serving any youth right now. The plan is to serve youth in the most impacted communities that currently refer youth to probation. That would be priority 1. Priority 2 is to figure out how to work in schools effectively. And in terms of school districts, Sequoia Union High School District would be the district.
Okay, let's
But
continue.
eventually it would be available to any youth in the county, right?
That's the goal.
That's
It's
the
all
goal.
about money.
But
Yeah.
we need to start with a pilot. You can't go full bore
So
until you figure out what you're doing.
All right, let's continue making these quick updates so that we can get to any other announcements if there are any. Commissioner Huber-Levy, I saw your hand go up, and was it no? No, okay, never mind.
It's okay. I think Melissa explained things very well.
And next on, there was a spot next about after school programs. Did you have any quick update on that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, please go ahead.
And Roxana, thank you for sharing that invite. And I can tell you that the sentiment that you shared with us and the concern of parents is exactly the same concern that the project team has had. And I also know that the state is providing a lot of support and direction and is holding many information sessions and has fireside chats and office hours, but they can't, they can't give something to someone who's not receiving it. And we're perceiving no information from the districts as to what's going on. So we've been in touch with the new expanded learning and community partnerships point person at the County Office of Education, and Ruby Makarek. She's great. She has a lot of ideas. She is highly energetic, but her focus does not seem to be on supporting the districts in appropriately optimizing this funding. And just to remind everyone, this funding is millions of dollars, billions of dollars statewide, but millions of dollars specifically flowing to underserved areas of our county that we highlighted in our report as in need of support for after-school programming. So this just seemed to us as like this amazing timing that we're looking into this, and we highlighted North County and did that profile of all of the districts and the specific services that they provide for after school through CBOs and on their own, district by district. And it was such a well-received report. But what we're hearing back when we probe is that districts are, well, I guess the greatest way to say it is they're in a plandemic, is what they've reported back, that they have so many plans that they have to do. They have so much work with COVID, with other funding, with the normal school day, that layering on top of them this, what is perceived to be an obligation to use these funds, is a very weighty proposition for them. And what it's meant to be is basically now it's a bit of a moving target, and we're waiting for the budget trailer bill to clear up some potential problematic areas in the way the money can be used. And it's complicated because it's involving ACES and 21st Century Learning Centers funding and ARPA funding, and it can all be used together. And it should be an incredible boost for California schools. And just to remind you, California, before this ELOP funding of billions of dollars, which is rising up by 2025 to, I can't remember the exact amount, but it's budget funding. It's not, you don't have to reapply for it every year. It's a funding for these programs that's rising every year. So it's permanent funding as long as this government is in place. But before this new funding came into effect, California had 3 times the level of funding of all the other states together. So, I mean, it is really mind-boggling that if we can't do something extraordinary with this fund, we need to start thinking in a different way. And what the state is encouraging us to do through their expanded learning division of the California Department of Education is to think creatively, and they've removed the requirements for audits and for plans for the first 2 years. So this year and next year, they're encouraging districts to be creative, to grab low-hanging fruit, to expand programs, to think about using these funds. And what we're hearing is not much. It's difficult for us to kind of get through to the decision makers at the district level. And Tony and Amaya and I are working on this project. And what we have decided that we're going to do is a little survey for district superintendents to kind of try to encourage them to talk to us a little bit about what their plans are. We sit in on all the CDE expanded learning sessions. We know examples from other districts around California that are doing these innovative things. We just like to hear about what's going on in our county. So that's what we're working on. That's what we're pushing.
Yeah.
We're in touch with the Office of Education. We follow up on every lead. We also have a good connection with the Boys and Girls Clubs of the county, which is now, there were 3 separate Boys and Girls Clubs, and they've just amalgamated and become one to strengthen their platform, and with particular focus to be paid to the underserved North County. So, we're trying to get in touch with everyone. And Roxana, we need to keep in touch too, because you're such a great source of information, a pipeline to the parents. So I think I'm going to start inviting you to our afternoon check-in calls so that we can hear from you, and we'll definitely attend this meeting invitation that you sent us. So thank you. That's my brief update. We're working on it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Levy. It's almost 7:15. Do commissioners have any interest in spending another, say, 10 minutes to hear brief updates on other work that's being done?
I have to leave pretty soon, so I don't know if I'll be able to stay around.
Okay. Maybe raise your hand if you're interested in another 5 or 10 minutes for quick updates on other projects. Okay, I think we would still have a quorum. Commissioner Aurora, feel free to take off. It's at 7:15 now, and Ms. Stauffer, Ms. Clark, thank you so much for staying on. Anyone who needs to go, please go. But we're gonna spend another. Thank you, Ms. Clark. We're gonna spend another like 5 or 10 minutes doing just some quick updates on these other projects and maybe announcements. Commissioner Swope, you bye Melanie. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Susan, you I think wanted to give a quick update on the school attendance project.
I don't have anything that needs to be said today, I think.
Okay. I had put myself down to give quick updates on the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council and on the 823 subcommittee, as well as the Reimagined Juvenile Hall committee. And I'll combine those two and say that, well, the reason why they can be combined in one update is that there's often discussion about both in each of the meetings, and the reason for that is that any work that might be done to make changes within Juvenile Hall and the intention of the Reimagined Juvenile Hall Committee is that it make some changes inside the Juvenile Hall that might make it a more therapeutic and supportive environment. Things like, well, anyway, there's a long list of potential things, but it's very dependent on funding. And coming back to funding, there is proposed in the budget that is up for a vote in the legislature this summer, $100 million that could be dispersed across all counties for improvements to juvenile halls, and also potentially other funding to support realignment. And there's also a new office that was created by SB 823, the OYCR, which only just appointed a director at the end of last year and is at this point still hiring staff. And that office, which was created by SB 823, is also going to be providing guidance and potentially, sort of new rules and regulations for juvenile halls as to how to serve youth that would have otherwise been sent to DJJ. So kind of this all gets bundled together into, I mean, effectively the way I'm seeing it, SB 823 and realignment has kicked off a process, which is still the kind of the reverberations of it are still being felt, of how juvenile halls around the state may need to make changes and adjustments to their infrastructure and to their services for youth, because they're no longer going to be able to send youth to DJJ, right? And so that's an opportunity between the money in the budget generally for renovations in juvenile halls, potentially money to support to support a realignment. And I think there was another potential bucket of money, but we'll have to wait. We're kind of in a wait and see mode to see what kind of funding and what kind of direction from OICR we may get before deciding what we can actually do. So that's the brief update. It's sort of in a wait and see mode. Chief Keen has been very involved in this. And last thing I'll say, I don't want to use all the 5 to 10 minutes, is that the Reimagined Juvenile Hall Committee is meeting monthly now. And yesterday, the committee, which includes the DA, the county manager, juvenile court judge, Chief Keen,